Investment conditions and restrictions. Investment restrictions. A foreign portfolio investor shall invest only in the following securities, namely securities in the primary and secondary markets, including shares, debentures, and warrants of companies listed or to be listed on a recognized stock exchange in India. Units of schemes floated by domestic mutual funds, whether listed on a recognized stock exchange or not. Unit of schemes floated by collective investment scheme. Derivatives traded on a recognized stock exchange. Treasury bills and dated government securities. Commercial papers issued by an Indian company. Rupee denominated credit enhanced bonds. Security receipts issued by asset reconstruction companies. Perpetual debt instruments and debt capital instruments as specified by the Reserve Bank of India from time to time. Listed and unlisted non-convertible debenture bonds issued by an Indian company in the infrastructure sector, where infrastructure is defined in terms of the extent external commercial borrowings guidelines. Non-convertible debentures or bonds issued by non-banking financial companies categorized as infrastructure finance companies by the Reserve Bank of India. Rupee denominated bonds or units issued by infrastructure debt funds. Indian depository receipts permit FPIs to invest in units of REITs and Category 3 AIFs, and a FPI shall not hold more than 25% stake in a Category 3 AIF, where a foreign institutional investor or a sub-account prior to commencement of these regulations holds equity shares in company whose shares are not listed on any recognized stock exchange and continues to hold such shares after initial public offering and listing thereof. Such shares shall be subject to lock-in for the same period, if any, as is applicable to the shares held by foreign direct investor placed in similar position under the policy of the Government of India relating to foreign direct investment for the time being in force. In the respect of investments in the secondary market, the following conditions shall apply. A foreign portfolio investor shall transact in securities in India only on the basis of taking and giving delivery of securities purchased or sold. Clause A shall not apply to in case of any transactions in derivatives on a recognized stock exchange, short selling transactions in accordance with the framework specified by SEBI, any transaction in securities pursuant to an agreement entered into with the merchant banker in the process of market making or subscribing to unsubscribed portion of the issue in accordance with SEBI Issue of Capital and Disclosure Requirements Regulation 2009, any other transaction specified by SEBI. No transaction on the stock exchange shall be carried forward. The transaction of business in securities by foreign portfolio investor shall be only through stock brokers registered by SEBI. Clause D shall not apply to in case of transaction in government securities and such other securities falling under the purview of RBI, sale of securities in response to a letter of offer sent by an acquirer in accordance with SEBI, substantial acquisition of shares and takeovers regulation 2011, sale of securities in response to an offer made by any promoter or acquirer in accordance with SEBI delisting of equity shares regulation 2009, sale of securities in accordance with SEBI buyback of securities regulation 1998, divestment of securities in the response to an offer by Indian companies in accordance with operative guidelines for disinvestment of shares by Indian companies in the overseas market through issue of ADR or GDR as notified by the Government of India and directions issued by RBI from time to time. Any bid for or acquisition of securities in response to an offer for disinvestment of shares made by the central government or any state government. Any transaction in securities pursuant to an agreement entered into with the merchant banker in the process of market making or subscribing to the unsubscribed portion of the issue in accordance with SEBI Issue of Capital and Disclosure Requirements Regulation 2009. A foreign portfolio investor shall hold, deliver, or cause to be delivered securities only in the dematerialized form. However, any shares held in non dematerialized form before the commencement of these regulations can be held in non dematerialized form if such shares cannot be dematerialized. In the respect of investments in debt securities, the foreign portfolio investor shall also comply with the terms, conditions, or directions specified by SEBI or RBI from time to time, in addition to other conditions specified in these regulations. Unless otherwise approved by SEBI, securities shall be registered in the name of foreign portfolio investor as a beneficial owner for the purposes of the Depositories Act 1996. The purchase of equity shares of each company by a single foreign portfolio investor or an investor group shall be below 10% of the total issued capital of the company. The investment by the foreign portfolio investor shall also be subject to such other conditions and restrictions as may be specified by the Government of India from time to time. In cases where the Government of India enters into agreements or treaties with the other sovereign governments and where such agreements or treaties specifically recognize certain entities to be distinct and separate, SEBI may, during the validity of such agreements or treaties, recognize them as such subject to the conditions as may be specified by it. A foreign portfolio investor may lend or borrow securities in accordance with the framework specified by SEBI in this regard.